Hello, welcome to our Unit 3 notes on the Constitutional Convention. So we last talked a little bit about Shays' Rebellion and how things were beginning to unravel with the national government. This is going to lead delegates from 5 of the states to meet in Annapolis in the fall of 1786. And essentially what they're talking about at this point is, what should we do with the failing national government? Things are obviously not working. Things are getting worse. What should we do? So really they're faced with two different choices at this point. One is they can take the existing Articles of Confederation and somehow fix the flaws that it has, maybe add some things and give the national government more power through the Articles of Confederation, or they could scrap the Articles of Confederation and write a completely new form of government. So it's kind of like if you have a car that's continually breaking down, you kind of have a decision to make. You can either pump some money into getting the old car fixed, or you could go out and get a new car. Now, of course, both of these decisions are going to have different ramifications. Essentially, what they decide in Annapolis is that it would be much better if they decide to write a new plan of government. So the challenge here is to create a strong national government, but one that would not be overpowering. So again, we want to take the power of the government and we want to separate it into different levels, where the states have certain powers, the national government has certain powers, but they are shared. Right now, under the Articles of Confederation, the way it's listed, the states have almost essentially all of the power. So they're going to call a constitutional convention. There's 13 states, of course, at this point, and a total of 12 of the states sent delegates to the convention. The one state that did not was Rhode Island. There's some speculation that possibly Rhode Island did not send someone because there was a feeling that maybe if they didn't have a unanimous decision, like we talked about with the Articles of Confederation, if they wanted to change things, it had to be all or nothing among the 13 states. If Rhode Island, a very, very small state, felt like maybe they were going to lose some of the power they had and they didn't want the government to change, then if they don't send somebody, maybe they won't actually write a new plan of government. Of course, that doesn't happen. They decide to move on, and unfortunately, Rhode Island does not have anybody there at the beginning of the convention. So the Constitutional Convention is held in the summer of 1787 in the city of Philadelphia. Philadelphia is kind of considered to be like a capital city at this point for the United States, kind of centrally located. Here is Independence Hall. This is where they both sign the Declaration of Independence and also meet to write the Constitution. Great place to visit if you're ever in Philadelphia. And the meetings for the Constitutional Convention are held inside that building with the door shut, the window shut, complete secrecy. And the reason for this is they really want the freedom to be able to debate, change their minds. If this was reported on a daily basis, it would be really hard for anybody to admit maybe a week later that somebody had a better idea and they would like to change their mind. So it's done in complete secrecy, which, if it was done today, would probably drive everybody crazy, especially the news networks. There's a total of 55 delegates at the Constitutional Convention from different states, of course, the 12 states that we talked about. Now, although there are 55 delegates, there's only 39 delegates that actually sign the Constitution. We're going to talk a little bit later about why this is, but it's interesting when we talk about that there are 55 delegates. We have to remember that at the end of the convention, only 39 of them actually signed the Constitution. This is a great place in Philadelphia. This is at the United States Constitution Center, and they have created a Hall of Founders where you have life-size figures done in bronze of all the delegates. It's a great place. Here's Benjamin Franklin down here, you can see. It's just a really, really cool place to go, and it gives you an idea for how tall these people are. When I was there, I looked at Alexander Hamilton, who was a fairly short person, and was kind of surprised at his small stature. So if you're ever in Philadelphia, this is a great place to go to see a little bit of kind of what the founders look like. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the specific people at the convention, some of the more well-known individuals. First is James Madison. Now, James Madison is from Virginia. He is one of the people that really does a lot of prep work before the convention. He reads more than 100 books in preparation for the convention on all different kinds of philosophies of government and different theories of government. He does this in his house at Montpelier in Virginia, and he is the one that, as the convention starts, is kind of, you could almost say, like the organizer. Has a lot of different theories and ideas on possibly what they could do. Now, James Madison is also known as the father of the Constitution. We mentioned just a couple minutes ago that the meetings were held in complete secrecy. So one might ask, well, how do we know then how decisions were made and things were debated? James Madison does take detailed notes of all the things that happened during the convention, realizing that at some point people in the future are going to want to know how this government was created. So James Madison is known also as the father of the Constitution for the role that he took. Now, two people that were not at the Constitutional Convention, a lot of times people think were, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. They were both out of the country overseas at that time, both serving our country as ambassadors overseas. But again, kind of interesting, President number 2, John Adams, and President number 3, Thomas Jefferson, were not at the Constitutional Convention. There were also some famous people that did not go to the convention that were invited. One was Patrick Henry. Patrick Henry was a Virginian, very predominant political figure. He refuses to attend the convention because he, quote, smelled a rat. He thought that they were essentially going to create a monarchy, which they just got out of. And so he did not attend the convention and instead stayed home. Ben Franklin, a very, very famous person, probably one of the most famous people in the world at this point. He's a famous scientist, a statesman, those kinds of things. He is at the convention. He is the oldest delegate. At the time of the convention, he is 81 years old. The youngest delegate is 26 years old. And one of the really, I think, kind of cool things about Ben Franklin and the convention is that he was brought to the convention each day in what they call a sedan chair. So he sat in this thing, and then there's 2 pieces of wood. You can only see the back of this one, but there's another piece just like this in the front. And then 4 people would pick it up with these kind of like straps of leather, and they would carry him to the convention hall. So you can imagine kind of like the, almost like the paparazzi type thing and like the buzz and stuff as you see Ben Franklin being carried to the convention each day in Philadelphia in a sedan chair. Pretty cool. And then, of course, we have George Washington. George Washington won the American Revolution, goes home to Mount Vernon, thinks he's going to retire, basically, be a farmer and just kind of live out the rest of his life. And he is requested by many friends to come out of retirement to help with the convention. Henry Knox being one of the people that really persuades him to come out of retirement. So George Washington's going to come out of retirement. And this is a very risky move for him. He's going to kind of risk his legacy, which is already very secure. And he is going to be at the convention, and he is also going to serve as the president of the convention. Now, he's not president of the United States at this point. We don't actually have that position yet. But he is president of the convention. This is important because you're going to have a lot of really big egos in the room at the Constitutional Convention. George Washington is the one person in the United States at this point that could probably tell anybody, hey, it's not your turn to talk anymore. You've had your say, those kinds of things. Nobody's going to argue with George Washington. So he's not going to do a lot of speaking at the convention. He's just there to kind of, be a kind of fatherly figure, authoritative, that kind of stuff. But he's not going to give a lot of fiery speeches. He really wasn't that type of person. But it is important that he's there because he's the guy that is essentially kind of in charge. All right, so that's a little bit about the convention, kind of like how it came to be, a little bit about some of the people. What we're going to talk about in the next section of notes is specifically some of the issues that they talked about: slavery, representation in government, those types of things. So we will pick up the story on the Constitutional Convention with our next section, which is called Compromises at the Convention. All right, thanks.